Okay, with that, I pass on to the MC, Mari. Thank you.
Thank you, Toshi. So let us now go straight into the first session. First session is CEO discussion. IFC long-term clients share their views on how inclusive business has evolved since our first meeting in 2010. I would like to give the floor to the moderator of this session, Eriko Ishikawa, Senior Program Manager, Inclusive Business Models Group. Eriko, if we may.
Thank you very much, Mari. Well, good morning, everybody. Again, I want to thank each one of you for being here. I have interacted with all of you in one form or another, asked you for all kinds of things, and you have been so wonderful in responding. Well, I want to ask the first discussion leaders to come up, and I'm just going to use first names. So please, Gonzalo, Sanjay, João, Teddy, and please have a seat, and there should be a mic right there. I'd also wanted to thank many of you who accepted our interview to do the Being the Change. And we couldn't include all the people we interviewed this time, but we're going to have it online on our website, and we want to have more so that we can produce another one and do another printing. So many of you were really very, very, very generous with your time, so I want to thank you. But I want to continue doing this because I think that, you know, many people really get more inspiration from the personal interviews that we are able to publish. So since everybody actually did the self-introduction already in this first session, I'm going to just go in straight into some of the things that we want to do in this panel. I have asked people who are here who have been working with IFC for quite a long time. So we wanted to really learn, number one, from your experiences dealing with IFC, and also to learn how you have overcome challenges in your business. I'm actually going to start with Teddy because he said something the other night to me which was so revealing. He said that IFC has pushed ECOM in many different ways, and yet that he takes that challenge from IFC as an opportunity to make it a competitive advantage. So Teddy, I wanted you to say a little bit more about that and then maybe share with the whole team a little bit of what you meant by that. Thank you.
Very well. As I was explaining to you, we are coffee and cocoa traders. And as coffee traders, we process coffee in many countries around the world. And to process coffee, you actually need to use a lot of water for depulping, for fermentation, and all those processes. And the IFC made an investment in our company, and then they asked us for all these compliance in our wet mills, in our coffee processing stations. And I think of the 20 wet mills we have around the world, maybe one was compliant to the IFC standards, even though we were compliant with the local standards, and maybe not even in all the cases. So the IFC pushed us to become not only compliant locally, but with their own regulations, and that required a very big investment. And the easy thing to do is, you know, say, well, what's the minimum we can do just so that IFC gets off our back, no? That, you know, that's the typical, reply. And the other thing is, how can we convert this into a competitive advantage? As I was telling Eriko, those other two alternatives we have. One is just to do the minimum, and the other one is just to be the first company in the world who is actually producing almost drinking water out of all of its wet mills. So basically, that's the approach we took, and it's not only on the wet mills. I mean, the IFC, the compliance department is very annoying, if you want to take it that way. But if you want to take it the other way, it can actually be a very, you know, a very good way to improve in many different aspects of doing business. So That's how we tackle the water treatment issue in our coffee wet mills.
Thank you very much, Teddy. And I want to say that all of you who are IFC investment clients are in a very elite club, which is that you are with a business model that is not only financially sustainable, but has met all the environmental and social requirements of IFC. And I really want to stress that point, because when we did the G20 challenge, the innovation challenge, from 300 companies, we went down immediately to about 150, just because these companies who had, you know, at least put in their name in the competition, they didn't even have any social environmental standards. So this is a very important point, especially because when we talk about social entrepreneurs and impact investment, there are a lot of people who want to do good, but if you are not also being financially sustainable and environmentally and socially sustainable, then you actually could be doing more harm than good. And I'm actually quoting somebody who's not here with us from Agrofinanzas, but Teddy knows very well, because he's the one who wrote it. In the interview, he said that you have to be financially sustainable. Actually, I'm going to jump now in a way, because this financial sustainable part is something that Sanjay mentioned at another meeting we were at, and he said the words that everybody after that was quoting around IFC, and it was the fact that when you're trying to scale up, if you're not commercially viable already, all you're doing is scaling up losses. So I'm going to just ask you to maybe talk a little bit about that, and then mention some of the, you know, maybe a challenge or so that you've had to adapt your strategy to.
Yeah, I'll first start by actually, you know, Teddy's story reminds me of my first experiences with IFC, which was over 3 years ago, and the EHS compliance that we actually had to go through at the time of our first loan. It actually was a lot of hard work, and I told my team at the time, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and it was really hard for about 3 or 4 months, because I was taking over an operation that was not necessarily up to the IFC standards, so it took us a while to bring it up, but the team worked very well with us in making that happen. But once it happened, it made subsequent discussions with future investors so much easier, because you're already meeting a very high standard of operation in fairly remote areas, and we work in remote places, you know, in South Asia, in Africa, and not necessarily the easiest environments to work in, but that was something that really helped us. So I really identified with that experience that Teddy talked about. Back to the issue of sustainability and financial sustainability. One of the most difficult things is to be financially sustainable in the water business when you're talking about the bottom of the pyramid, because you're dealing with all kinds of notions where a lot of people feel that water is a humanitarian right. People sometimes have the impression that the bottom of the pyramid community actually doesn't want to pay for water, which in our experience is actually very far from the truth. We find actually the poor actually pay more for water, and if it's not safe, then they actually pay more in terms of the cost of sickness and their impact on health. And we have numerous studies coming out now in the areas where we work in, where the impact on school children is just phenomenal. You know, if they get safe water, the impact on their health, their you know, education is just phenomenal. So the time 3 years ago when we sort of tried to make this sustainable as a basis for scaling up the business, it's extremely hard because of these kind of notions. But we persevered and focused on the idea that we have to make sure that each one of our centers is financially sustainable, and only then we can scale. And more importantly, we also tried to make sure that each region that we were working in was also independently sustainable. And the idea comes from, you know, my background in project finance, having financed some fairly large infrastructure projects where you do cash flow financings. You try to make sure that each project is sustainable on its own, so that if something bad happens to one, the rest of the organization still survives. And that's very important in our business. We run over 500 water purification centers around the world in 5 countries. And if you can imagine, you're a member of that community in Africa, and because we didn't manage our business in India well, their water supply got shut down. So it's a very important idea that not only do you have to be financially sustainable, but you also have to think about your business and de-risk it, so that if something happens to one part of the business, the other part can still survive and still continue operating. So it's very critical that you focus on sustainability of these centers. And if you can do that, then we have, as an inclusive business, a big leg up on our competition at this point of time, which is really a lot of not-for-profits or businesses that are really not sustainable, that are currently out there providing free water or unsafe water, mostly unsafe water. And I think that creates an issue when you're trying to move people onto something that is better and safe for them. But most of the businesses that are there are not going to be there 6 or 9 months from now, because they don't make enough of a revenue stream to support the operations, and they constantly have to find new sources of funding to sustain themselves. And we've seen over the last 3 years, at least, that I've been in the business, that a lot of businesses have come and gone, and we have survived. So.
Thank you very much. I think that's a really, really important point. In many of the countries where all of you are operating, there's quite a lot of new awareness about the importance of helping the poor. And there's a lot of philanthropic NGOs getting funding from all over the world. But I think the key issue is, once the funding runs out, oftentimes that community is in a worse situation than before. And it's something that, for IFC as a development institution, we have to use your business models as examples that, this is something the private sector can actually handle. And maybe there is an initial subsidy that's needed, which is in the case of some of our younger clients that we are helping, that you need more technical assistance, capacity building, but that eventually the model itself has to be sustainable. Otherwise, it's going to do more harm for the people that you're trying to help in the long run. So that's a very, very important point. I want to ask actually now, Gonzalo, a little bit, because you deal with a lot of the bakers who are really base of the pyramid. And I think that you will see in being the change, that the piece that we were able to do after the interview was very inspiring to a lot of people. Actually, you're the most quoted person around in our office. So I wanted to thank you, because you actually say that the BOP are the stars, and they're the ones who are really changing their lives by the way that they are working so hard, and all you're doing is really helping them make their lives better, but they are the stars. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about that and the challenges that you go through to be able to help them.
Thank you. In general, I think what we see in the last 20 years in these third world countries in Latin America, where I know firsthand, is probably in the 90s we were coming out of this crisis, permanent repeating crisis. We had migration, we had banking crisis, devaluation, hyperinflation. It was every day you wake up and you had a different news. It was not like the one I was watching this morning while I was jet lagged. We're talking about crisis in Europe, but it's a crisis which floats in a different level. No? It's about it's very complicated, but the crisis that hit third world countries, Latin America, were much harder, and were really impacting people in their pockets. With a hyperinflation, basically people got their savings wiped out. Yeah, absolutely. And in these cities, you've seen the cities that have been growing in the last 20 years or so, neighborhoods being formed, and the bonds in those neighborhoods are in the process. And people start to decide how to start in life. The first thing, you know, I was talking before the meeting, and the first choice is to become a street vendor. You pick up some stuff from some Chinese import, and you stop at the traffic light and you start selling. But you know, there's so many street vendors you can have, and there's actually a fight for traffic lights. So the next thing you do is try to figure out in your own neighborhood what's the business. And the first industrial business, actually producing something and creating value, adding value, is a bakery. It's a food business. Sometimes it goes along with a small neighborhood store, basic supplies, and these people are actually making a huge effort to be a productive member of society. They own a business. They work very hard. And I was telling the story that you see these people actually living in the same bakery. Since the bakery is a little bit hot, so they put some kind of cover for the floor, a rug or something, and they sleep there and they work for 24 hours. Early in the morning, they'll bake and they'll continue working through the day. And these people really need a way out. They already did the first step, which is setting out a business, but lots of them don't have an education. We've seen that in the last year we had the idea of coming with some finances for them, but unfortunately it got limited by government regulation. But we see that for them accessing a banking system, opening even a saving account is so difficult that we have to help them through this process of becoming a different society.
Becoming a citizen.
Yeah. Of course, they don't pay taxes, and it's sometimes it's not a problem that they don't want to pay taxes. It's the problem that the tax system is so complex. You know, now it's internet-based, but you know, for me it's difficult to pay taxes. Not to say to people who are not went through even secondary education. So yeah, these people want to be part. They have made the first effort. I think the companies that are operating in their neighborhood are the ones called to help them through the process and to reach a different level. We see a society forming in these neighborhoods. We see a new kind of entrepreneurs. We see businesses. We see a vibrant society, but I think we have the opportunity to be a part of the change.
Thank you very much. I think this is a very interesting point, because the fact that in some countries, if you are in the business of distributing flour, which Moderna does, it is not easy to actually finance your clients because there are regulations. And I can even say that Teddy that has that experience in Mexico, where ECOM could not finance the farmers directly, but then you actually created a new business. So, I mean, and I will get to João, because that's basically the business of Martins, but Teddy, just in a short explanation, tell us a little bit how you ended up having to create Agrofinanças.
Mm-hmm. As a commodity merchant, we do a lot of financing of both our suppliers and our customers. And in the case of our suppliers, the farmers, as a company, the tax laws were different if we financed them as a company than as a bank. So it was generating a lot more taxes. And that's why we decided to create Agrofinanças, which was a small finance company where the IFC backed us, was invested in that bank. And today it's a full-fledged bank in Mexico. And basically it got completely away from our day-to-day commodity business because it finances many more things, but it just started to finance our suppliers. And the other advantage that exists is that in Mexico there is a trust fund from the government which guarantees the financing at the bottom of the pyramid. So that is something obviously which is a very big incentive. If you finance small farmers, the government will contribute a guarantee to be able to incentivize a little bit the financing. Otherwise, it's very difficult to go and finance people who have never had a bank account in their lives. And today, when we go to countries where like the Ivory Coast, for example, or where people ask us for financing, we will always say, well, please find us the guarantees that the Mexican government gives to financing at the bottom of the pyramid. And
that's a very, very good point. That as IFC, we see different models, and different models depend on actual policies of the government. We have several clients who have been able to use whatever incentives exist to everybody, so it's not just for that one company. We see this, and we will talk a little bit later, specifically more in housing construction, housing finance, both in Mexico and Brazil, but that's the next panel. But before I go to that, I want João to tell a little bit about how, you know, Martins and Tribanco, which are an interrelated company, but Martins is a huge distribution company that really bets on the small retailers. So in a way, it's almost like if you're a baker who started very small, got a little bigger, became a grocery store, that's the client base of Martins, and they distributed goods to these small retail shops. And then they realized, wow, they really need financing. So they then created a bank, and from that bank, they also created a credit card product for the individual client that comes to shop in that retail shop. Then some insurance, and now we're looking into something in the mobile area. So it's a very interesting kind of, I always would put, you know, Martins Tribanco in the technology, as a technology company. You know, you're not just a distribution company with a financial arm. You have used technology to be able to get to each of these steps. So if you could say a little bit about that, because
yes.
It's a very interesting model.
Yes, we start, like you said, the bank start financing people that no banks in Brazil want to give credit. But we have the relation with the clients. Our salesman, sales force goes every week, every month to sell goods, to sell products, and we'll know then. We'll sell with a little bit credit sometimes. And you start financing them, and during this time you are changing. The concept is that we are a service company. Sometimes we provide goods, products, sometimes we provide financing products, sometimes we provide mobile solution. Now we started 2 years ago with another company in Brazil, acquiring company, because credit card is increasing so much, credit cards, yes? And now we participate, this little company in this BOP represent almost 1% of credit card, all the credit cards acquiring in Brazil. Yes, it's very, very, very interesting. The concept is that we are there to give them, to ask them what they need. We have to support what they need to be a company like we are now. And the concept is that sometimes you have a magnet. One time the magnet is the product that we sell. Another time is the service of the bank to attract the client and give them sometimes a cheaper product, like a mobile. We are making now a network with 10,000 clients of our base clients, not to give them, but it's almost to give them a mobile, free, to talk to us first, but after that they will pay, if they want to talk to anybody, almost 20% of the cost they had in the past. They have now. And this kind of solution will give them a lower cost at the first time, but the credit that you have to make business with them. Sometimes they broke. Yes, they go to bankruptcy. Why? Because education to them is very important, financial education. The group has like a university of Martins University to help them how to invest. If one store is good, the second store could be or not. Yes, but they don't know that. And sometimes they get money in another bank, in Itaú, Banco do Brasil, short-term loan to invest in a new store. and you talk to them to analyze that. Not to give the money from Tribanco. No, no. The objective, the final objective is to tell them what to do. Get, we have lines from IFC, yes, long-term lines, and we use this kind of lines to investment, but sometimes they don't like. They want to pay the credit in 6 months, but we show them they don't have money to do that. It's impossible to pay in 6 months. We need 3-4 years, but they don't want to have a debt of 3-4 years. And education is very, very important in the BOP, especially in Brazil. They don't have more than primary school, yes? And getting back, the concept that we have is we are there to provide solutions, service solutions, financial solutions, not only to sell goods, okay? But now some of them are increasing, are developing. Some regions that in the past was so difficult to go there with a truck to sell our products, we now other companies can go, and to us is the competitiveness is higher. Yes.
Thank you so much. I think that's a very, very important point, that capacity building and training is so important, both for actually getting the suppliers, in the case of ECOM, to get better yields, to get certification so they can get a better price, and the long-term relationship that you have with your suppliers is so critical because they trust you. And at the same time, the knowledge that you have as a company that works so closely with them is much, much greater than what a bank that doesn't have that capillarity would have. And I think it's the same thing with the Tribanco Martins. Martins is a distributor. They know exactly how much each of these small retail shop buys from them. They know how well this person is doing as an entrepreneur. And the strategy has always been to go to the smaller cities and find the guy who has the most potential for growth. And I think Martins always says, I grow with my customer. And then Tribanco then can come in and help that retail customer grow as a businessman and give the advice. So it's a very interesting two sides of the coin on the supply chain, you know, all this capacity building and financing, and for Martins on the distribution side and reaching a client who in turn is reaching very low income populations because of where they're located. A lot of the Martins and Tribanco clients are in rural areas. They're also in slums. I have been to shops where I saw the Tribanco truck going into the slums in Rio, in Rocinha. So they are everywhere. So it's a very, very interesting model on both sides with capacity building and the financing. You know, there's a reason why they've been our clients for so long, because we like this model very much, and we've been supporting them throughout their growth as companies. And then at the same time, you know, I think that in the case of Moderna, you have tried to do the financing, and you've encountered some of these difficulties in terms of regulation. So if there's something we can help to push the government, you know, we can always try. And with water health, we've been really all along the way also been a long-term relationship and hoping for the growth and replication in different countries and different continents. So it's a very, there's so much to learn from all these models here that we don't have enough time. But I want more as a closing for each one of you to have a chance to say something about what are you most proud of? And I know you're going to say your family, so I'm going to say on the professional sphere, what are you most proud of that you can share with us here? Teddy?
I start very well. I think that as a company which is giving so much technical assistance at the farm level, I think that the thing that we're the most proud of is when we see one of these farmers succeed buying other farms and becoming prosperous, basically. So basically, you know, like I'm sure we're all very proud when we see our colleagues succeed. In this case, you know, the day-to-day work that we do in the fields, the part that is really very gratifying is when you see farmers. In the interview that you made, Eriko, I said, we have farmers who have become millionaires and who had basically nothing. And obviously the high commodity prices of the past few years have helped, but it happens. So that's what makes me proud.
Thank you, Terry.
To us, it's important to see the clients growing, and this gives to us a lot of prouds too. Yes, but what is important to maintain and to develop the company? The clients. The clients are important. How to talk to them, how to understand them. We have a board of clients. We developed this 10 years ago, and they are one of the most important things that we have. We talk to them every year 6 times in every region of Brazil to ask them what they need, what are our problems, the relation that we have, and these give us sometimes lessons to us, what to do, what to improve, and the values that we have are supported by that. This is one of the things that are very important to a small bank to compete, not a small bank, a company to compete, to ask them what they are needing or they need now and what they are looking for the future. And this is one of the things that we treat very, very, very well there.
Thank you very much. I must admit that I actually had the privilege of participating in one of the meetings that the Grupo Martins does. And I was very, very much inspired. I was touched by the energy. I almost felt like I was going to a religious convention because of the kind of energy that you get from all these small retailers who come and get together and share ideas. And I must admit, I stole that idea, and that's why we have these meetings. Obviously, we have to have more meetings. We only have once a year, but it is really important to meet the clients. No, you're absolutely right. Yes, thank you. Sanjay?
Yeah, I'd like to answer that question in 2 parts. One is by telling you a story about an interaction I had with a customer of ours in a fairly remote community in India. And when I went to visit this water health center that was supplying water to about 6,000 people at the time, I asked this person who had come there to pick up water, what can we do differently? What can we do to become better? And his answer was, there's nothing more that we want from you. You're giving us water, and he called our water 5-star water because it was water that is only available, the mineral water that we drink, only available in hotels, 5-star hotels. And he was now getting it for his family for a very affordable price, about 10 cents for 20 liters. And so that completely, brought home to me and to my team how important of a service we are providing. And those kind of stories keep the team energized. The second thing that we are really proud of is the ability to provide really good professional development for the teams that we have within water health. We have close to about 1,000 people now, and we're growing very rapidly. And the interesting thing for us has been to see these people come into water health with all kinds of backgrounds and then have the ability to run pretty much their own businesses. And they're supported by first world technology, first world accounting systems, first world cell phone monitoring and smart card systems. But they're running, at the end of the day, their businesses, and they are just developing phenomenally. These are people in their 20s, they're people in their 30s, and I think to see that happen, it's phenomenally rewarding for me.
That's a wonderful, conclusion. In a way, you have to do capacity building with your own staff first, because before you can actually reach your clients. So I think that's a very important point. Yes, thank you.
I was thinking on Toshi timeline on this literature, and it was Professor Prakash on BOP, and there's Professor Porter on this, what are they called?
Shared value.
Shared value. Most of us started in this strategy a long time before those things were put into writings. And we started, and probably we didn't know if it was going to work or not. And now I think it's very rewarding to see that's working, both for clients that are prospering and both for the company also that is also doing well. I think we're coming at a time where the challenges are forcing companies to move faster, because clients are becoming better with training and with the money they're making. It's like the farmers they're making money. So the companies are now challenged to do a lot more than they used to do in the past. In the past, we were working on basic training. Now we have to go into a new type of service type of company. We have to be more service, less industrial.
Thank you very much. You're absolutely right. I think the clients are becoming more sophisticated and demanding more, as well as the consumers are demanding more in the case of water. And the retailers have to meet their demands. And even in coffee, the consumer is demanding more. Isn't that right, Teddy? So it's like there's a lot more consciousness about where is this coffee coming from? Is it being grown with some certification? Are the farmers being treated well? So throughout the whole value chain, I think there's more of a recognition that I'm just not buying this one item, or just, you know, it's something that I want to know what's the story behind it, which is not something that used to be there before. And communications are so global now that you know, a lot of people have issues with supply chains, as we know. And there are boycotts, and there are situations where people will not buy something if they feel that there's some kind of social injustice. So I think in some ways the convergence is there. Well, since I was the one that only kept asking a lot of questions, and this is a very rare thing, we're running a little bit ahead of time, I'm going to give the floor the chance to ask one or two questions of the people who are up here. And, you know, don't be shy, or even the participants up here can ask each other a question or two. Who has the first? Yes, please, Paresh. If you can get the mic so the translators can listen to you.
I have a question for gentleman from Tribanco. Two questions related to two business which you are running. One is that distribution and another is the financing. In the case of a distribution, so the prices which you sell it to the retailer, are those with the wholesale distributor who is otherwise supplies to them, or it's a different pricing which you do that, or maybe better price, I don't know, because of your bulk buying capacity, and you may be able to distribute at the lower price than the otherwise distributor will get. The secondly, on the financing side, what is the chance or what kind of a probability which you get on the retailer defaulting the payments when you are loaning him or when you are giving him the financing? So, you know, we deal with a similar kind of a community actually, you know, so we deal with the retailers where they become our franchisee, and we, you know, we ultimately, they service to customers actually. So we are the similar kind of a community which we deal with. So I just want to understand their behavior basically mainly, and how they behave in this kind of situation actually.
If the client is a client of not only Martins but Tribanco and the other companies that we have, insurance, and we have a different price. Yes, you have some advantage, like a bonus, like a system that evaluated the relation they have with us, and to give the client the sensation, not the sensation, but the some of the revenues that we have, we give back. Sometimes we give back in the price, sometimes we give back giving course to them, sometimes we give back with lower financing loan, yes, but we have this compensation. Martins is not competitive in in some states of Brazil, especially the big one, the São Paulo, like the south of Brazil, the richest part of Brazil. Why? Because there, everybody goes there, and it's easy to make business in this part of Brazil. And we make business sometimes far from Minas Gerais is our headquarters, far from São Paulo. But if you look at the price that you put some products in a city 5,000 kilometers from São Paulo is cheap. If you look at the transportation, the system that you have is very efficient to do that. And you are very competitive. But you have this kind of evaluation. And the same happen if they have a loan. And if they have a loan with the bank and the other services like acquiring, like insurance, like mobile, we compensate. And sometimes they pay us and do not pay the other banks. Sometimes, a lot of times. Why? Because they trust us and they need us. Because we are not only lend money to them, yes? But in the end of the day, if they don't pay, we try to arrange. We try to sell the goods they have. We try to, the company, the Martins buy back sometimes. And to sell the store, a lot of clients that increase business having another store, and after talk to them, they sell one of them to put the money in the system, but some of them do not pay. Okay? But in this case, we are a bank. You are a bank. You have to go and to try to get back the money. But the rules that we have comparing to the others are not so hard. Not so hard.
Thank you very much, Paresh, for the question, and João for the answer. And yes, Leonidas, you have a question.
Yes, to Tribanco, Martins as well. From your presentation, you can understand that more than the business, there are some other values that you promote as essential for your business. Not only the economical part, but there are some other values. Why don't you explain a little bit more the values that support your operation?
Yes, the company has the values of the company that Mr. Martins put in the card that we have. Every card you have, the love what you do, loyalty, justice, innovation is very important, discipline, humility, integrity. How to do with these values? These values are not a part of a card. To have humility, you have to talk to the clients, not only the clients, to our professional. We have to talk to them as we are talking to the clients. We have to be close to them to see what is happening. Sometimes the clients do not tell me directly, tell through a guy, or sometimes the guy do not tell me the board, the president. And innovation. Innovation is one concept that we have every single day. This value, look to the market to see what they are doing, or one step ahead. Like this mobile network that we are giving them. Nobody's doing that. Everybody has some courses, some universities. Yesterday, I was reading the newspaper in Brazil and saw there some entrepreneurs with a lot of courses to the retail shoppers. And they are earning a lot of money. Our courses are free. Are free what? Why? Because we wanted to give them the condition to understand the business, to make a cash flow, to see what goods put in the store to sell better. because you have research to that. And we try to put this value in the business. For instance, we have lines of to invest in safe energy, which IFC support. Yes, this kind of line of credit is lower, has an interest lower than the other lines that we have. We lose money? No. We get clients with these lines. We get more sustainability in the future. Yes, this is what happened with us. It's very difficult to do. It's very, very difficult to do because we need to earn money every day. Yes, and sometimes we look at the situation and the other bank is earning more than us. But you have this kind of lines, and this is the reason they are with us. We are not Itaú, we are not Banco do Brasil. We don't have the money they have. A lot of money, long-term money. We have this kind of lines to each business. But this is the way that we understand that is important. If the values that we have, we give to the clients the same, just for instance, this line to help them to save energy. Okay, it's important. To who? To us, to them, and the relation will be better in the future. Not now, only in the future too. I don't know if I answer your question.
Thank you very much, João. I think you did answer the question. And I think one key thing that we hear over and over whenever we speak to many of our clients who are doing well is that long-term relationship. And having done this publication, you know, interviewing and putting down 14 clients with very interesting views, one common thread that came through is that people have to invest in the long term. And for some reason or another, might be just coincidence, we have a lot of family-owned businesses as clients, especially the ones that we have interviewed. We have a lot of founders. We have some young founders. We have some, you know, like in Suvida's case. But we also have second, third generation or fourth generation entrepreneurs who are doing something, but there's a certain value from the companies, from the founders, that this is a long-term business. It's not a quick profit-making business. It's something that they're in the long run. So I think that I have the pleasure of meeting you know, the founder of Grupo Martins, and he was himself a small retail shop owner. And he told me that in his family, being in retail shopping, because he came from more of a cattle ranching, land-owning family, that his family thought it was very strange that he wanted to do that, because at that time, being a retail shop owner meant that you had no values, that you were not necessarily somebody who really had integrity. You were just a shopkeeper, and you tried to make money as much as you could, and maybe you even cheat your customers. So that was the mind frame of his own family, but he went against it and he said, no, I'm going to make the business of shopkeeping something you can be proud of. And I think we have seen throughout his career how he has infused at every step the values of integrity, of honesty. And he has a following of a lot of these shopkeepers who just want to be like him. He's really like the role model for, you know, all shopkeepers who are starting very small to think that maybe one day I can really be successful, because look, you know, he made it. So it's almost a cult following. I'd say, I wasn't kidding when I said it was almost like being in a religious meeting when all these shop owners gathered together to listen to Mr. Alair Martins. It's a really emotional experience. But thank you very much, João, for sharing that. I think we can take probably one or two more questions. Yes, Tom. Let me introduce Tom. Tom Davenport is the regional director for South Asia, and he actually is a great supporter of inclusive business because he's one of the few people in management who has done both advisory and investments. So you know what we're talking about when we're trying to help our clients. Thank you, Tom. Go ahead.
Thanks, Eriko. My question is for Sanjay, and the mention earlier about providing this service and how the donors are potentially spoiling the market. I guess I have two questions. Which is more first? Is he seeing, as your model becomes more sustainable, are you seeing a greater alignment with donor agencies about providing it on a sustainable basis? And secondly, which is more challenging, trying to deal with these donor and government programs or convincing the populations that this is a value in the medium term that they should pay for? Thanks.
There's been an interesting shift happening in this, in the BOP space over the last 3 years at least that I've been involved with it. Prior to, water health kind of models, at least in the water space, there wasn't much of an alternative for people who wanted to help the BOP. So you would donate either money or you would donate equipment. And in most of those cases, between 6 to 12 months later, you would find that the equipment was not working or the intervention that you had put in place was no longer doing its job. And so the community would go back to ground zero. Over the last 3 years, as more of an emphasis has been placed on sustainability, the conversation with the donors and the givers, that itself is changing. They are asking the question, will this system or intervention be there 5 years from now? And that's making a major change happen in the NGO and the not-for-profit communities, because they are now, looking at it and saying, how can we make our business model better? Because the work that they're doing, it has to be said, the work that they're doing is important. But if you look at the BOP, all the inclusive models that you will find have a certain market price. There is a price below which we can't conduct our business and make it sustainable. So I typically put it at 1/3, 2/3. The bottom 1/3 of the BOP need that help. The top 2/3 we can help as inclusive businesses. So when we go into these markets, our effort is to not antagonize the NGOs or the not-for-profits, but to tell them that there is a way that they can add value and we can add value, and we should work together. Right? Now, how do you make the transition? It's a very, very interesting and important question, because when you go into these communities and you start to provide a service that wasn't available before, typically you are competing with free or something which is more expensive but not of a very good quality. So if I go into a community and find that they are actually getting quality water at reasonable prices, then there is no reason for us to be there. So we would typically not go there. So when we go to some community, we find that there is a strong reason to be there. The water quality is poor, microbiologically contaminated, or very, very expensive. And in all these cases, just by the virtue of us being there and providing a service that is not only safe and affordable, but also reliable, it changes people's behavior. And this reliability issue is very, very important in my view, in my viewpoint. We are in some sense the new utility. We're distributed. We take water locally. We provide clean water locally. We don't transport water long distances. So it's a new business model, but we are the utility which is going to get water to the next 2 billion people who are not going to get it through pipe water. So when we are trying to benchmark our own performance, one of the things that we look at is reliability. The only time we think of our utility is when what the utility provides doesn't work, and we curse the utility at that point of time. So if you put on the switch and no electricity comes out, that's the only time you think of the utility. If you switch on the tap and no water comes out, that's the only time you think of the water company, right? So the issue is, how do you make your service reliable? Because if you don't supply a reliable service, you're not going to change people's behavior. The woman who goes 2-3 hours to pick up water is not going to change her behavior if 3 out of 5 days you don't provide water at the right time. So if it's at 8 o'clock in the morning, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. So the reliability aspect is what we are pushing now as the next level of performance within our own network of these water health centers. Because once you have quality, affordability, and reliability, now you truly have been able to change people's behavior. And then they can do whatever they want with their free time. You know, a woman can read to her kids, you know, she can go and watch a movie if she likes. And I'll end with this story that that experience I had with the water minister in India, who said to me that he really loved our model, but it didn't coincide with the ideas of self-sustainability that he had for the villagers. And he said, you know, this providing of water to these villages doesn't make them self-sustainable. And my comment back to him was, with due respect, sir, even you are not self-sustainable. Somebody cooks for you, cleans for you, drives you to work, and carries your briefcase up to your office. So why is it that we want the people in these remote areas or peri-urban areas or even the urban underserved to be self-sustainable? Why can't they have services? And the only difference between in the urban areas and rural areas is the issue of affordability and nothing more. So I think it's a question of transforming, Tom, the product or the service that you provide to these folks so that they want to get it, right? And that changes their behavior.
I think, Tom, that was a great question, and Sanjay, that was a great answer, because, yeah, I think we all have to look at the base of the pyramid. People should also get the best service that they can get and they can afford. And as you said, in the case of water, many are paying a lot more than those of us who have tap water. Yeah. So I think that really humanizing everybody who's actually our client is the most important thing, because they have their own needs. And, you know, in the case of some clients of Tribanco that get a first credit card, they can only use it in that store. But getting a credit card for the people who don't even have a real bank account is an incredible, empowering process of citizenship. So I think that, you know, they should have the ability to pay at the end of the month, you know, with a credit card, even though they don't have a bank account. So those are the things that we all have to put ourselves in the shoes of the people we're trying to, you know, serve. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the questions from the audience, and I really want to thank each one of you who are up here with no PowerPoints. You know, everybody's going, oh, I have a PowerPoint. And I said, no, 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 no PowerPoints. I think that the flow of the conversation was so much more natural. I think that everybody appreciated that you really were talking from your hearts. And, you know, we're going to have a coffee break. If you have any, you know, questions, burning questions that you want, you know, today we're in a small group, and we are here to really share information, share all our experiences. And I think that one thing that you said, Sanjay, which was so interesting, is when you first started coming to these meetings, you were like, wow, you know, there are actually these people who actually care, who are business people, who are really thinking about the profit margins, and yet they're also doing this. So this is a very exclusive group. And we're also honored that, you know, you're here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear a big round of applause again. The first session will now close, and we'll take a 15 minutes coffee break. We will start the next session, panel session 1, housing, at 11:05 sharp. I would ask that you all make sure to be back in time. Thank you.